Hello everyone, Dwayne here from the Aurelia team, and today we're going to be talking about portaling content. So have you ever found yourself building a component, maybe a modal dialog or a complex drop-down menu, and then you realize while it logically belongs to your component, it visually needs to break out and render somewhere else in the DOM, like directly under the body tag to avoid CSS stacking context issues or Z-index nightmares, then you need the portal attribute. So Aurelia 2 has a sleek and intuitive solution for this exact problem, which is the portal custom attribute. So think of it like creating a teleportation gate for your HTML elements. So what does portal do? Well, I feel like we've already, spoiler alert, we've already told you what it does. It allows you to define an element or a block of HTML within your components template, but instruct Aurelia to render it at a different location in the DOM tree when the application runs. So the really cool part, even though the element visually moves, it retains its original binding context. All your data bindings that you pass in, so anything like say a click.trigger, bindable property, whatever, they all still work exactly as if the element hadn't moved. So this makes it perfect for those tricky UI elements that need to sit high up in the DOM structure for layout or stacking reasons, but are logically tied to a specific component deep in your hierarchy. So we're going to look at the simplest use case if you just add the portal attribute to an element without any configuration. Aurelia will automatically move that element to just before the closing body tag of your application. So we're going to go into our code editor here, and we're going to create a button. So we're going to keep hello world in there, and we're going to add a button with a portal attribute. So we don't have to import anything. We just add portal, and we go my portaled button. And then I am portaled to the body. So we're going to add some styling on here so we can actually see this button in action. Nothing too fancy. And we should probably also add a bindable property in there as well. Just message or something. Just so we can show you that the bindings do indeed work. Message equals dynamic interpolated value. So we've got the app running already, and we're going to go into the browser now, and we can see that we've got our element here. It's got our style, but you can see in DevTools that instead of it being inside of my app here, where it was previously under the Hello World heading, it is now at the bottom before the closing body. So in our components template, the button is defined after the div, as you can see in our code here. But in the browser's rendered DOM, the button element itself has been teleported to the end of the body. Its original location now just contains placeholder comments, but importantly, the text inside the button still correctly displays the message property and the context is preserved. So portaling to the body is useful, but often you might need more control. You might want to portal the element into a specific container elsewhere on the page. Maybe it relates to like a drop down or whatever. So portal lets you specify a target in quite a few different ways. So you can use CSS selectors. You can provide a standard CSS selector string, and you can target by ID, class, or tags. So in this, we're going to create a little bit more of an elaborate setup here now, and we're going to add in a div. We're going to style this border 1px dashed blue, if I can spell it correctly, padding 10 pixels, margin bottom 10 pixels. And we're going to say component area. Whoop. Okay. So now under here, we're going to put portal equals target div. You can see that's an ID telling that to target an ID of target div, which we do not have just yet, but we will. And we're going to say color is green, portaled to target div. And we're going to use a different element. We'll use a span tag, and we're going to target a CSS class of target class in there. We're going to change the color of this one to purple, portaled to .target class. And then lastly, we'll use something like a bold tag or strong tag, portal equals header. You can see that's targeting a tag name, color orange. And then portaled to header tag. So now we're going to create another div. We're also going to add in a horizontal rule. And now we're going to put our header style equals border 1px solid orange, padding 5 pixels, min height, we'll do 20 pixels, and then header tag target div ID equals target div, style equals border 1px solid green, padding 5 pixels. We'll do min height of 20 on that. Target div ID. Lastly, we're going to do a target class and then put style equals border 1 pixel solid purple to match the color of the text. We'll do padding 5 pixels, and we'll add a minimum height as well, just to keep it all pretty. Target div class. So we're going to quickly show this now running in the browser. You can see that our component area is now empty. All of the elements that we defined in the target area have now been moved, and all of the portaled elements are now inside of these relevant divs down the bottom here, or header and then 2 divs. So you can see it's portaled that particular content right inside. So we're targeting an element by its ID using target.id. We're just going to open the code up to explain this. The target div. Another by its class, so target class, of course, targeting that. And then even the first header tag targeting this. Aurelia uses a selector to find the target element and then moves the portaled content into it. So now we're going to talk about using element references. If your target is defined within your Aurelia application, you can use a ref attribute to bind to that particular instance. So we can actually just get rid of all of this once again and start anew. We're going to go div ref equals my portal container. That is creating a reference to this particular instance of the element. Solid red, padding 10 pixels, margin top 10 pixels. My portal container. Now we're going to put a button element down the bottom here. Portal equals target.bind, my portal container. And then style equals background color. And maybe we'll go like a light coral or something for this one. A nice prettier color. I portal to the container above using ref. So we're going to open up the browser now and show that this element has moved to the reference div using ref. So we use ref equals my portal container to get a reference to the target div in our view model. So we can actually access this inside the myapp.ts view model if we want as well, but we're just using this to create a reference. Then we bind to the portal attribute using target property on there, target.bind, and passing that particular reference to it. And this is really handy when your target might also be dynamic or created by another component. Maybe you might not have an ID or a class or a tag that you can rely on. So now we can do even more advanced targeting. So we've highlighted a few different targeting approaches now, and now we're going to show you how you can be even more advanced. So to get a reference, you can be more creative. So for instance, you could inject the host element of your component and then portal something relative to it like its parent. So inside of the HTML, we're going to create a button element again, portal, target.bind, element.parent element. Don't worry, this will make sense in a second. Style equals background color. Maybe we'll do a light blue this time. And we're going to say portal to parent. Now under this button, we're going to have a div and go child component content. So this pattern allows a child component to place UI elements like perhaps an action button or status indicator into its parent's layout structure directly. So for this, we're going to have to go into, because we're calling element, we're going to have to inject the element in here. So we're going to go read-only element, HTML element equals resolve, and then inode. Okay. Let's just keep that the way it is there. We've got elements, and we're injecting the instance of my app in there, which of course is the host container. And now if we were to run this code in the browser, you can see that it's injected into its parent layout directly. Right here inside of the my app. So child component created, and then we have this particular instance here, it's portaled it up. So now that we've talked about how you can actually move content around using portal, we're going to talk about how you can control the position, which is equally important. So we know where the element goes, the target, but how exactly is it inserted relative to that target? By default, portal appends the element just inside the target right before its closing tag, which is technically called the before end position if you're talking about native JavaScript. But you can control this position using the position property within the portal attribute. It accepts 4 standard manipulation positions. So you can put before begin, which will insert the element before the target element itself. After begin, which will insert the element inside the target right after the opening tag. Before end, which is the default as we've seen, it'll insert the element inside the target right before the closing tag. And then after end, we'll insert the element after the target element itself. So we're going to highlight this by creating some HTML once again, and we'll create a div called position target. Once again, we'll put some styling on there. That div, and then we're going to put, maybe we'll do all caps this time to be dramatic. Now, let's start portaling, shall we? Span portal equals target, and then we're going to position target. So this isn't new to you because we've used this paradigm before, but now what we're going to use is position. So before begin. And we should also make sure we close that off because that's an attribute. And then we're going to add in a color to differentiate these. We're going to make this one red. Before begin. So we're going to duplicate these because we're just going to be changing the position property. So 1, 2, 3. This will be after begin. This will be before end, which is the defaults. And then after end. Oop. So after begin, before end, after end. And we are going to change all these colors as well, just to differentiate them. Green. And for this one, we'll do purple. So now we've got these portal values here. We're going to add in a button now with portal, and then once again, target, position, target. Then we're going to go position.bind, dynamic position. And we're just going to add in a margin on here. Margin left 10 pixels. And then dynamic position. Lastly, we're going to add in a select drop down where we can dynamically change these position values to show you them changing in real time. Make that one the default before end. And then option after end. So inside of my app, we're going to add in a default dynamic position now. And that will be before end. So if we go into the browser, we're going to see that we've got the makeup of our component here. We've got before begin, which is adding it right above the target. Then we've got after begin, which is right after the opening tag. Before end, which is right before the closing tag, of course. And then this one, adding it after that particular div. So now that we've got this in particular, we can actually change the position by dynamically changing a drop-down to illustrate our button moving around the page. So you can see that the position attribute is dynamic, so we can actually move elements around the page. So you can see combining target and position gives you precise control over where your portaled content appears in the final DOM structure. And like the target, the position can also be data bound as well. So let's recap what we've demonstrated in this video. It's only a few concepts, but it's worth kind of repeating. The beauty of the portal element is that it plays nicely with all of Aurelia's features. So binding context stays the same. Your portaled element still accesses data from where it was defined. Template controllers, it works seamlessly with if bind, repeat for, blah, blah, blah. If you have div portal, if.bind, the div element will be added to or removed from the portal target when a particular value changes. So you don't have to worry about it being incompatible with any of the default Aurelia functionality. So more importantly, when should you reach for portal? So we kind of went over this already, but we're recapping here, so just roll with me. Modals and dialogues, the classic example, define the modal in your component, portal it to the body to ensure it's top level, no other elements, no CSS hacks. Notifications and toasts, create a dedicated container somewhere and then portal notifications into it from various components to make sure they go above everything. Tooltips and popovers, another really important one. You can render them outside the component they relate to avoid clipping issues. So you can see those different modes. We can actually move it above to the inside, etc. Complex drop-down menus are a big one. You can ensure menus aren't constrained by the parent, so overflow hidden can cause lots of problems, and you can use this to kind of break out of overflow hidden elements. And there's a few other use cases we probably didn't cover, but those are the main ones. So we're going to end the video here, but as you can see, Aurelia's portal attribute is simple yet incredibly effective for managing complex UI layouts. It lets you separate the logical structure of your components from their final render position in the DOM, all while maintaining the correct data binding context. So it's perfect for solving those tricky stacking and overflow issues without resorting to CSS hacks. And more importantly, those situations where you do use CSS hacks, they don't necessarily always work because sometimes the parent element and the way that CSS in the box model works, you can't fix those things with CSS. So it's a really good way to kind of solve it without hacking around. So I hope you found this look at portals useful. If you enjoyed it, we'd love for you to hit the like button and subscribe for more Aurelia 2 content. And drop a comment below or reach out to us on Discord with any questions or suggestions because we love making this content for you and we want Aurelia to be really useful for experienced and newcomer developers, and we understand that the docs aren't always, necessarily the funnest thing to dive through and read through. So we want to make this content as helpful and as visual as possible for you in a format that's easy to digest. So thank you very much for tuning in, and hopefully I'll see you around in the next one. See you later.